Lillian felt a lump in her throat as she sat on the couch in Lizzie's house. The reason for her visit was heavy in her heart, and she hoped to mend the rifts that had developed between them. Lizzie, I want us to talk, Lillian said softly. Lizzie, I know things have been strained between us. I came here because I need to understand what's going on. We have grown so apart, and I feel like I've lost my sister. I want to know where I went wrong. I am sorry for whatever it is that upsets you, and I am ready to make things right. Lizzie's face hardened, and she sighed deeply. Lillian, honestly, I don't need this right now. I just gave birth and I am exhausted. I don't have the energy to deal with what feels like stress over things that seem irrelevant to me right now. Lillian's heart sank. She had expected a different response, one that showed understanding and a willingness to repair their relationship. Instead, Lizzie's words felt like a slap in the face. You mean to tell me that everything I just said about us is irrelevant? Everything about our relationship doesn't matter? Lizzie's gaze was cold. Yes, Lillian. How could you understand that I need rest and peace after giving birth to twins when you have never experienced that kind of struggle? If you aren't Barren, you should have understood what I went through. I need to focus on my family right now. Lillian felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. The pain in her chest grew sharper. You called me Barren? Lizzie, she said in disbelief. You really just called me Barren? Lizzie didn't blink or show any sign of regret. Her face remained impassive, and even her nanny, who was present, looked stunned by the harshness of Lizzie's words. Lillian's eyes filled with tears, and she tried to hold them back, but it was impossible. The betrayal and hurt were overwhelming. She wiped her tears quickly, stood up, and looked at her sister one last time. I came here to heal our bond, not to be insulted, Lillian said. I am sorry for coming at such a difficult time, but I can't stay here any longer. Lillian walked to the door, her movements slow and deliberate. Lizzie didn't move or say anything more. She simply watched as her twin sister, who had been a source of her strength and joy, walked out of her life. As Lillian left the house, she felt a sense of finality. The path of reconciliation had been closed by the harsh words and lack of empathy. Lizzie's inability to see beyond her immediate struggles left Lillian with no choice but to walk away. She left Lizzie's house with a heavy heart. Lillian and Lizzie were inseparable twin sisters who did everything together. They attended the same school, studied the same course, and even shared the same friends. Their bond was so strong that they could sense each other's emotions and thoughts. Their parents often joked that they were two peas in a pod, and even they feared scolding one of them, knowing that the other would take it personally. The sisters had an unwritten rule: an enemy to one is an enemy to both. They stood up for each other no matter what. As they grew older, their desire to be together only intensified. They even wished to marry twins so they could continue their inseparable journey together. In school, they were known as the twin terrors because they would fiercely defend each other against anyone who dared to cross them. Their classmates learned to respect them, knowing that messing with one meant messing with both. However, when Lillian married a wealthy man named Edward, their lives took different paths. Edward, with affluence and devotion, showered Lillian with love and luxury. Despite the opulence surrounding her, the couple faced the challenge of infertility, and their efforts to conceive were met with disappointment. Lillian's life was filled with material comfort and emotional support from Edward. He was a loving husband who made sure she lacked nothing and constantly reassured her of his love. Yet, the absence of a child weighed heavily on both of them. They poured their hearts into trying for a family, exploring every possible avenue, from medical treatment to hospital practices. Despite the strain, Lillian and Edward's bond remained unshakable. They supported each other through the emotional roller coaster of their journey. The trials they faced only seemed to strengthen their connection. Lizzie met Ben during a casual outing with friends. His charm and good looks drew her in. Their connection was undeniable, and Lizzie found herself deeply in love. Ben's carefree attitude and approach to life seemed to complement Lizzie's more grounded nature. As their relationship blossomed, Lizzie decided to marry Ben. When he asked her to marry him, it was Lillian, Lizzie's twin sister, who ended up playing a significant role in their lives. Lillian, being more financially stable, generously supported them. Lizzie works too, but Ben doesn't work. Ben's reluctance to find steady work or manage finances effectively sometimes created tension. Lizzie struggled with the strain of being the primary breadwinner and managing household responsibilities. Lillian's assistance alleviated some of the immediate pressures in their family. Lillian was overjoyed for her twin sister Lizzie, who had become pregnant months after getting married. Lillian felt a deep sense of gratitude and pride as she saw Lizzie's happiness and excitement. From the moment Lizzie announced her pregnancy, Lillian immersed herself in helping her sister prepare for the new arrival. She found the best hospital in town for Lizzie's antenatal care, ensuring that she had access to top-notch medical professionals and facilities. Lillian meticulously coordinated Lizzie's appointment and made sure all necessary tests and checkups were completed on time. In addition to managing Lizzie's medical care, Lillian took on the task of preparing for the baby's arrival. She researched the best baby products from cribs to car seats and bought everything Lizzie would need. Lizzie was a dedicated professional, putting in long hours at her workplace, while Lillian had her own career and was equally committed to her responsibilities. Lizzie's life took an unexpected turn after she married Ben. Before the marriage, Ben had made grand claims about his job, insisting that he worked for a prestigious oil company. Lizzie, in love and trusting him, believed these claims. They got married, and Lizzie was excited to start this new chapter of her life. But the reality soon set in. Shortly after the wedding, Lizzie discovered that Ben was not employed at an oil company. In fact, he didn't have a job at all. Instead, Ben was financially supported by his wealthy sisters. Lizzie felt betrayed and disheartened. The burden of financial responsibility fell entirely on her shoulders. She worked tirelessly to make ends meet. Her days were filled with long hours at the office, and her nights were often spent worrying about bills and expenses. Lizzie tried to manage everything with grace, but the pressure was immense. Ben, who had promised to be her partner in life, contributed nothing to their financial stability. He would often spend his days at home, not even bothering to help around the house. It was Lillian who became Lizzie's rock during this difficult period. Lillian understood the struggle her sister was facing. She saw how Lizzie was working hard only to come home and deal with a partner who was neither supportive nor responsible. Lillian stepped in, offering both emotional and financial support whenever Lizzie needed it. Lizzie knew that managing her life with Ben's lack of contribution would have been nearly impossible. One day, Lillian decided to address her concern with Lizzie. She knew this wasn't an easy topic to bring up, but she felt it was important to have an honest conversation. She called Lizzie over to her house for a chat. When Lizzie arrived, Lillian welcomed her with a warm hug, trying to ease the tension. They settled down on the couch and Lillian carefully started the conversation. She spoke about how much she cared about Lizzie and her family. She expressed her worries about Ben being unemployed and how it could impact their financial stability if Lizzie's job were to be at risk too. Lillian gently suggested that Lizzie should talk to Ben about the situation. She proposed that Ben should actively seek employment and not remain idle. Lillian emphasized that finding a job was crucial for their financial security and for the well-being of their family. She didn't want Lizzie and Ben to become overly dependent on others for their needs. Lizzie listened carefully. She understood her sister's perspective and could see where Lillian was coming from. Lizzie appreciated Lillian's concern and agreed that they needed to address the situation seriously. She knew that having Ben actively job hunting was essential for their family's stability. Lizzie promised Lillian that she would talk to Ben about the importance of finding work and ensuring their family's financial health. She also said she would keep Lillian updated on their progress. They both agreed that although no one hoped for Lizzie to lose her own job, it was better to be prepared and make sure they were doing everything they could to avoid such scenario. Lizzie sat with Ben in their cozy living room. The room, filled with light from a single lamp, seemed to amplify the tension between them. Lizzie took a deep breath, knowing that the conversation she was about to initiate could be delicate. They were expecting a baby soon, and the financial responsibilities of parenthood were starting to loom large. Ben, can we talk about something important? Lizzie began, her voice steady but gentle. She looked at him, trying to gauge his mood. Ben, sitting on the sofa with a book in his hands, looked up with a slight frown. Sure, what's up? Lizzie hesitated for a moment before speaking. I have been thinking a lot about the future and how we are going to manage things with the baby coming. I really think it would be a good idea for you to start looking for a job. It would help us with the extra expenses we are going to have. The room fell silent for a few seconds. Ben's expression darkened, and he put the book down, his frustration evident. Why did you bring this up? I know I need to find a job. I am not a child who needs constant reminders. Lizzie's heart sank at his reaction. She tried to stay calm, her voice soft. I'm not trying to nag you, Ben. I just want us to be prepared for the added costs that come with having a baby. It's important for us that we both contribute and make sure we are financially stable. Ben's anger flared. You think I don't know this? Is this your way of telling me you are unhappy with me? Is it because your sister said so? I knew it. You went to your sister's house today and now this. I know she's been helping us, but that doesn't mean I need to be reminded of it all the time. Ben, please, don't be upset. I am not saying any of this to make you feel bad. I just want us to be proactive about our situation. It's not about what my sister said. I just want us to be in a good place before the baby arrives. But Ben was not calming down. His voice rose, filled with frustration. It feels like everyone is expecting me to solve all our problems overnight. It's not that simple. I am trying my best, and it seems like no matter what I do, it's never enough. Lizzie reached out to touch his hand, hoping to bridge the gap that was growing between them. Ben pulled his hand away. I get it, Lizzie, but it feels like you are putting all the pressure on me. I need to figure out things on my own. Lizzie's eyes welled up with tears, but she fought to keep her voice steady. I'm sorry if it feels that way. I don't mean to put pressure on you. I just want us to be prepared and make sure we can provide for our baby. Ben lay on the bed after his discussion with Lizzie. Why was she suddenly so worried about me being unemployed? I am sure that her twin sister was behind this, pressuring Lizzie to bring up the issue. Why do I even need to work when Lizzie has a job and my sister supports me too? Determined to change things, Ben decided that since Lizzie cared for him deeply, he would make her dislike her sister. If he could do that, maybe Lizzie would stop worrying about his job situation and focus more on their relationship. Ben and Lizzie were enjoying a playful moment together when Ben's expression shifted to something more serious. Honey, there's something I need to talk to you about, he said carefully. I've been thinking, and I suspect that your sister might not be as happy for us as she seems. You know, since you got pregnant before her, even though she got married before you. Lizzie's face flushed with anger. Stop it, Ben. My sister Lillian would never be jealous of me. She's been nothing but supportive and even bought all our baby things, she retorted. Ben looked unconvinced. I think it might just be a way for her to mask her true feelings. It's possible she's feeling left out or envious but doesn't want to show it. Lizzie's anger cooled as she pondered Ben's words. She remembered Lillian's enthusiastic support and generous gift but couldn't shake the nagging doubts Ben had planted. The thought that Lillian might be hiding her true feelings made Lizzie reflect deeply on their relationship and the dynamics with her sister. Lillian was deeply concerned about her twin sister Lizzie. They had recently discussed the pressing issue of Lizzie's husband finding a job before Lizzie's baby arrived. So she wanted to make sure that Lizzie's husband had agreed to look for employment. However, Lizzie reacted strongly to Lillian's concerns. She became visibly upset and accused Lillian of being insensitive. Lizzie felt that Lillian's comments were unfair and pointed out that Lillian's husband had a better financial situation, and is it because Lillian often helped her out? Lizzie's frustration boiled as she questioned whether Lillian's concern was genuinely about her well-being or if it was because of her own more comfortable financial situation. Lillian was surprised to Lizzie's reaction. She tried to explain that her intentions were purely out of love and care. She didn't want Lizzie to face hardships and was only trying to offer practical advice to make their relationship easier. Lillian was hurt that her sister interpreted her advice as criticism or as a sign of superiority. Despite Lillian's efforts to clarify her feelings, Lizzie was not willing to listen. Her anger clouded her judgment, and she chose to walk away from the conversation. Lillian was left pondering the situation. She wondered if she had been too forceful or if there was a deeper issue between them. All she wanted was to see her sister happy and well supported, but now she felt a growing distance between them. Lizzie walked into the door, her face a mix of frustration and sadness. Her husband Ben was immediately concerned. He looked at her and asked, "What's wrong?" With a heavy sigh, Lizzie began to explain. "I had a really tough day. I had an argument with Lillian. She kept bringing up the fact that you are still looking for a job, and it just upsets me so much. It feels like she's constantly criticizing us." Ben's expression shifted from concern to a more self-satisfied look. He seized the opportunity to make his point. "See, Lizzie, this is exactly what I've been talking about. Lillian's jealousy is showing. She's envious of your pregnancy and is trying to create problems between us. It's not just about the job. She's trying to undermine our happiness." Lizzie was taken aback by Ben's reaction. "But she's my sister. Isn't there another way to look at it?" Ben shook his head. "No, Lizzie. You have seen it for yourself now. Lillian doesn't want to support you, and she's using this situation to make things worse for us. She's making it clear that she's not interested in helping anymore." Lizzie felt conflicted. Part of her wanted to believe Ben's perspective, but another part of her still felt the bond she had with her sister. She wasn't sure what to think or how to handle the situation moving forward. Lillian sat on the couch looking sad and confused. She couldn't understand why Lizzie had misinterpreted her concerns about Ben getting a job. She had only wanted the best for her sister and her family. Lillian thought back to their conversation, trying to figure out where she had gone wrong. She had simply suggested that Ben should find a job to support Lizzie and their family, but Lizzie had become defensive and upset. Her sister had never acted this way before. They had always been close and supportive of each other. Lillian wondered if something was wrong that she didn't know about. Was Lizzie going through something personal that she hadn't shared with her? Lillian tried calling Lizzie many times. She dialed Lizzie's number hoping to hear her sister's voice on the other end. Each time, she was met with silence or a brief voicemail message. Lizzie didn't answer, and Lillian's heart sank with each unanswered call. Worried and desperate to make things right, Lillian decided to visit Lizzie at her house. She went there several times, hoping to talk things over face to face. However, each time she arrived, Lizzie's husband would answer the door and say that Lizzie wasn't home. Lillian could tell from his uneasy demeanor that something was off, but he would always offer a polite excuse. The more Lillian tries to reach out, the more it seemed like Lizzie was intentionally avoiding her. This realization was heartbreaking. Lillian felt like she was losing her sister, not because of lack of love, but because of some invisible barrier that Lizzie had put up. Every attempt to reach her felt like hitting a wall. Lillian couldn't take the pain and hurt anymore. She went to their parents, seeking their help and guidance. She told them everything from Lizzie's changed behavior to her harsh words. Their parents were shocked and concerned. They tried to call Lizzie to talk to her and understand why she was avoiding her sister. But every time they mentioned Lillian's name, Lizzie would end the call. Lizzie, what's going on? Why are you treating your sister like this? Their mother asked, but Lizzie wouldn't listen. Don't mention her name to me. I don't want to talk about her. Their parents tried every possible means to reach out to Lizzie, but she warned them not to intervene. Mind your own business. This is between me and Lillian. Lillian's heart broke even more. She felt like she was losing her sister, her twin, her best friend. She didn't know what to do anymore. Their parents were at a loss too. They had never seen their daughters like this before. They didn't know how to fix the rift between them. As the days went by, the distance between Lillian and Lizzie grew wider. They stopped talking, stopped meeting. It was like they were strangers, not twin sisters who shared a special bond. Lillian felt like a part of her was missing. She missed her sister, her confidant, her partner in crime. She didn't know how to get her back. Lizzie had just given birth, and for some reason, she and her husband Ben decided not to tell Lillian right away. A week passed, and Ben finally felt it was time to let Lillian know. He called her, and she was shocked to hear the news. Lillian was hurt and confused. How could they not tell her? After all, they were twins. And she felt she should have been informed right away. Lillian is the number one closest relative there in the city, yet they refused informing her. Without wasting any time, Lillian went to Lizzie's house. Her mind was full of questions and a sense of hurt. When she arrived, Ben answered the door, and Lillian, still feeling the sting of being left out, asked him why they hadn't told her sooner. Ben tried to explain their reasons, but before he could say much, Lizzie came out of the room, holding one of her newborn babies. She looked at her twin sister with a mix of surprise and curiosity. Look who we have here, Lizzie said, trying to break the tension, but also not fully understanding the depth of Lillian's feelings. Lillian sat there silent and overwhelmed. She had no idea how to respond. She was happy to see her sister and the new babies, but felt a deep sadness that she had been kept in the dark for so long. After a moment, Lillian gathered her composure and expressed her relief and joy that Lizzie had delivered safely. She offered to stay for a while to help with the babies and support her sister. Lizzie, however, assured her that everything was under control and that they were managing well on their own. Lillian, feeling like an outsider in her own sister's home, reluctantly agreed to leave. She was grateful for the safety of her twin sister and the newborns, but couldn't shake the feeling of being distant from the family she thought she was closest to. As she walked away, she couldn't help but reflect on the strange mix of emotions: joy for the new life and sadness for the rift that had formed between her and Lizzie. Lillian's homecoming was quiet. As soon as she walked through the door, her eyes welled up, and she couldn't hold back the tears any longer. Her husband, Edward, noticed her distress immediately. "Honey, what's wrong?" he asked with concern. As he reached out to her, his voice was gentle, filled with care and worry. He had never seen her so emotional, and it was clear that something significant was troubling her. Lillian struggled to speak through her tears. "It's nothing," she said, though her voice was choked with emotion. She tried to compose herself, but the sadness seemed to pour out uncontrollably. Edward could see that it was more than just a fleeting sadness. He wrapped his arms around her, offering her comfort and support. "Please tell me what's going on. You can't keep it bottled up inside. Whatever it is, we can face it together." After a moment of hesitation, Lillian began to recount the events that had been weighing on her heart. She told Edward about her relationship with her twin sister, Lizzie, and how things had been tensed between them. Lillian explained how she had learned that Lizzie had given birth a week ago, but she hadn't been informed until that day. "I don't understand why she's being so distant," Lillian said. "We have always been so close. I feel like she's angry with me about something, but I don't know what I have done. I just want to understand why she's treating me like this." Edward listened carefully, his expression serious but sympathetic. He could see how deeply hurt Lillian was by her sister's actions. "It sounds like this is really painful for you," he said softly, "but it might be helpful to talk to Lizzie directly. There might be something you don't know, and it's possible that there has been a misunderstanding." Lillian nodded, wiping her tears away. Edward's words made sense to her. She had been so caught up in her emotions that she hadn't considered the possibility of a simple misunderstanding. "Do you really think talking to her will help?" she asked. "I do," Edward replied. "If there is something you have done or said that upset her, it's best to clear the air. Sometimes people don't realize how their actions affect others. If you approach her calmly and ask her about it, she might be more open to discussing it." Lillian took in Edward's advice. She realized that if she could resolve this with Lizzie, it might bring peace back to their relationship. It was worth the effort to mend their bond. Lillian felt a lump in her throat as she sat on the couch in Lizzie's house. The reason for her visit was heavy in her heart, and she hoped to mend the rifts that had developed between them. "Lizzie, I want us to talk," Lillian said softly. "Lizzie, I know things have been strained between us. I came here because I need to understand what's going on. We have grown so apart, and I feel like I've lost my sister. I want to know where I went wrong. I am sorry for whatever it is that upsets you, and I am ready to make things right." Lizzie's face hardened, and she sighed deeply. "Lillian, honestly, I don't need this right now. I just gave birth and I am exhausted. I don't have the energy to deal with what feels like stress over things that seem irrelevant to me right now." Lillian's heart sank. She had expected a different response, one that showed understanding and a willingness to repair their relationship. Instead, Lizzie's words felt like a slap in the face. "You mean to tell me that everything I just said about us is irrelevant? Everything about our relationship doesn't matter?" Lizzie's gaze was cold. "Yes, Lillian. How could you understand that I need rest and peace after giving birth to twins when you have never experienced that kind of struggle? If you aren't barren, you should have understood what I went through. I need to focus on my family right now." Lillian felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. The pain in her chest grew sharper. "You called me barren? Lizzie," she said in disbelief. "You really just called me barren?" Lizzie didn't blink or show any sign of regret. Her face remained impassive, and even her nanny, who was present, looked stunned by the harshness of Lizzie's words. Lillian's eyes filled with tears, and she tried to hold them back, but it was impossible. The betrayal and hurt were overwhelming. She wiped her tears quickly, stood up, and looked at her sister one last time. "I came here to heal our bond, not to be insulted," Lillian said. "I am sorry for coming at such a difficult time, but I can't stay here any longer." Lillian walked to the door, her movements slow and deliberate. Lizzie didn't move or say anything more. She simply watched as her twin sister, who had been a source of her strength and joy, walked out of her life. As Lillian left the house, she felt a sense of finality. The path of reconciliation had been closed by the harsh words and lack of empathy. Lizzie's inability to see beyond her immediate struggles left Lillian with no choice but to walk away. She left Lizzie's house with a heavy heart. After the painful confrontation with her twin sister Lizzie, Lillian went home in tears. She couldn't believe that Lizzie would say such hurtful things, especially calling her a barren woman. The pain was overwhelming, and she felt a deep sense of betrayal. When Lillian arrived home, her husband noticed her distress immediately. He gently comforted her, urging her to stop crying. He reminded her that she had done everything she could to mend their relationship, and that sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't turn out the way we hope. He reassured Lillian that she was a wonderful person and that Lizzie's harsh words didn't define her. He emphasized that it was important to let go of the situation and not to force a relationship, no matter who was involved. His support and understanding were a balm to Lillian's aching heart. Feeling comforted by her husband's words, Lillian nodded in agreement. She realized that it was time to accept the reality of the situation and focus on healing herself. It was a difficult decision, but she understood that sometimes letting go was the best path forward. 2 months had flown by for Lillian, but she hadn't noticed. She was feeling feverish and weak. Her husband, concerned about her health, decided to call their family doctor. The doctor arrived promptly, checked Lillian, and after some tests, he delivered a surprising news. Lillian, the doctor said with a warm smile, you are 8 weeks pregnant. Lillian stared at him in disbelief. It took a moment for the news to sink in. Her eyes widened and then tears of joy filled them. Her husband hugged her tightly, his face beaming with happiness. They had been hoping and praying for this moment for a long time, and now it had come true. For years, they had yearned for a child, but it hadn't happened. They had waited, trusted in God's plan, and now it seemed their patience had paid off. The news felt like a miracle. They were overwhelmed with happiness and gratitude. As the days went by, they began to prepare for the new chapter in their lives. Lillian took better care of herself, making sure to follow the doctor's advice. Lillian's journey to motherhood was filled with joy and a few unexpected turns. Her pregnancy had been a challenge, but she embraced it with determination and hope. As the months went by, her anticipation grew. Lillian was excited and nervous about the arrival of her babies, a pair of bouncing baby boys. Adorable sons, her heart was full, and she felt overwhelmed with love and gratitude. Lillian, aware of the strained relationship with Lizzie, chose not to inform her about the twins. Lizzie had always harbored ill feelings towards her, and Lillian knew that revealing the news of the twins might only add to the tension. She decided that it was better to let Lizzie live in her own world, focusing on her own family and leaving the past behind. Lillian's priority was her own family now. She poured her love and energy into raising her 2 boys, creating a warm and nurturing environment for them. Lizzie was sitting on the edge of the bed, the room around her scattered with toys and baby clothes. The chaos of her life seemed to be reflected in the clutter. The cycle of hiring and firing nannies had left Lizzie exhausted. She was constantly worried about finding reliable help, and each departure felt like a personal failure. The constant strain was having a profound impact on her job performance, leading to frequent absences and missed deadlines. Eventually, her employer had had enough. Lizzie was called into a meeting one day and informed that her position was no longer available. She had been sacked. It felt like the final blow in a series of personal and professional setbacks. Back at home, tensions were high. Ben's sisters, who had been helping out sporadically, had finally reached their limit. They had their own families to take care of and could no longer continue offering support. Their withdrawal had only increased the pressure on Lizzie and Ben, and the atmosphere at home was thick with frustration and blame. One evening, as Lizzie and Ben sat across from each other, Lizzie finally voiced her pent up frustration. Ben, if you had found a job earlier, we wouldn't be in this mess. We wouldn't be struggling so much, and I wouldn't have lost my job. Why are you putting the blame on me now? Ben said. Well, maybe you should consider asking your sister Lillian for help. She might be able to help us renew the rent and avoid being kicked out of the house. How can you suggest that? You know how things are between Lillian and me. We haven't been on speaking terms for ages. How can I just go to her for money? It's humiliating. Ben shrugged. I don't see any other options right now. We need help, and if Lillian is the only one who can provide it, we need to swallow our pride and ask her. Lillian was right after all. She had warned Lizzie to make sure Ben found stable employment, and Lizzie had resented her for it. Lizzie had seen Lillian's advice as nothing more than jealousy, a way for her to undermine her happiness. But as Lizzie sat there, the weight of their financial situation pressing down on her, she began to see Lillian's perspective. Her sister had been right all along. She had been trying to help. Lizzie realized that she had been so focused on her own grievances that she had failed to see the genuine concern behind Lillian's advice. It was a hard realization to come to, and it left Lizzie feeling both angry and embarrassed. She had been so wrapped up in her own troubles and resentment that she had ignored the valuable advice and support that could have made a difference. Lizzie knew that she had no choice. She had to reach out to Lillian, even if it meant putting aside her pride and facing the discomfort of their strained relationship. The future of her family depended on it. Lizzie's options had dwindled, and she was left with no choice but to visit her twin sister Lillian. As Lizzie approached the familiar house, memories of their childhood together flooded her mind. She remembered the laughter they shared and the dreams they once had. But now, all that remained was the painful reality of her harsh words. Lillian answered the door, her eyes widening in surprise as she saw Lizzie standing there. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. Lillian, who had always been the more composed of the two, looked at her sister with a mixture of astonishment and guarded curiosity. "What are you doing here?" Lillian asked, her voice betraying a hint of the old hurt. "Why would you come to the house of a barren woman?" The term barren hung heavily in the air, a reminder of the insults Lizzie had once hurled at Lillian in a moment of cruelty. Lizzie swallowed hard, struggling to hold back her tears, her face flushed with shame. "I am so sorry, Lillian," Lizzie began. "I've come to beg for your forgiveness. I was wrong to call you barren. I misunderstood everything and I am deeply ashamed of what I said. Please, forgive me." Lillian's stern expression began to soften as she saw her sister's genuine remorse. A small tender smile appeared on her face. The pain of the past seeming to lift, she nodded and turned to call for her nanny. The nanny entered the room carrying two babies, each nestled comfortably in her arms. Lizzie's eyes widened in shock and confusion as she took in the sight of the teeny bundles of joy. She could hardly believe her eyes. "Whose babies are those?" Lizzie asked, her voice trembling with both surprise and curiosity. Lillian's smile grew warmer as she looked at the babies with affection. "They are mine," she said softly. "After everything you said, I want you to know that God finally blessed me and my husband with these twin boys. When you called me barren, I was actually pregnant but didn't even know it. God's timing is truly perfect." Lizzie stared at Lillian, tears of relief and joy mingling with her own. The sight of Lillian holding her children, the very blessing Lizzie had doubted, was overwhelming. She realized how much she had misjudged her sister's situation and how unfairly she had treated her. Lillian extended her arms, inviting Lizzie to hold one of the babies. With trembling hands, Lizzie took one of the boys and looked into his innocent eyes. The weight of her past actions seemed to lift as she held the child close, feeling a profound sense of connection and regret. Lillian's forgiveness and the beautiful reality of her twin boys were a powerful reminder of the lessons she had learned. Lizzie understood that her words had been both unkind and unfounded. In that moment of reconciliation, the bond between the sisters was renewed, stronger, and more compassionate than before. Lillian and Lizzie sat together in the cozy living room. "I am really sorry, Lillian. I know I have made mistakes and I haven't been the best sister. I am just so sorry about everything." Lillian placed a reassuring hand on Lizzie's shoulder. "Lizzie, there is nothing to be sorry for. I've already forgiven you. I had no reason to stay angry. We are family and we need to support each other." Lizzie's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Thank you, Lillian. You are the best sister I could ever ask for." Lillian smiled warmly. "I am glad you think so." "Lillian," Lizzie began hesitantly, "there is something else I need to tell you. Things at home aren't going well. We are behind on our rent, and if we don't pay soon, my husband and I, along with the kids, will be thrown out of our house." Lillian's expression softened with concern. "Oh, Lizzie, that sounds terrible. How much do you need?" Lizzie explained the amount required to settle the rent. Lillian listened attentively and, without a moment's hesitation, went inside her room. She handed Lizzie the expected amount needed and even a little extra for any other unexpected costs. You don't need to worry about the rent. This will cover it, and there is a bit more, just in case you need it. I don't know how to thank you enough, Lillian. This means so much to me. You have truly saved us. Lillian hugged her sister tightly. You don't need to thank me. I am happy to help. Family is important, and we are here for each other through thick and thin. With the money in hand, Lizzie felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders. She left Lillian's house with a heart full of joy and relief. When Lizzie returned home, she handed the money to her husband, Ben. She looked him in the eyes and said firmly, "This is the last time I'll be asking my sister for money. She has her own responsibility now. It's time for us to handle things on our own. You need to find a job and support this family." Ben felt a mix of relief. He knew that if he didn't start working, the family would continue to struggle and they might face even more hardships. Determined to make things better, Ben began searching for a job with renewed focus. He sent out applications, went to interviews, and reached out to connections. He didn't let setback discourage him. After some time, his efforts paid off. He landed a good job that provided a steady income. With Ben now working, the family's financial situation improved. They were able to pay their bills and put food on the table without relying on others. Life became more stable. The family's life gradually returned to normal. They learned to appreciate the stability they had achieved and were grateful for the new opportunities that Ben's job had brought them.